Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt like you're constantly scrolling, maybe clicking, always sort of chasing something, but you're not quite sure what it is? Or maybe wondered if there's a different way our economy could work, one that feels a bit more well aligned? Today, we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating sources that explore the trajectory of capitalism. We're going to look at its current state with the material we reviewed calls material frequencies and contrast that with a compelling vision of optimal efficiency, one that aligns with these, universal principles of truth, beauty, and goodness.
Right. And our mission here really is to map out where we are now, let's call it point A, and then try to envision a potential future, point B, a future where economic systems genuinely serve human flourishing and, importantly, planetary well-being. We'll also need to grapple with the huge time frame this kind of transformation might actually take, and what extraordinary conditions would have to be in place to maybe speed it up.
Yeah, and this isn't just some, academic exercise. This deep dive is really about understanding the subtle forces, but powerful forces shaping our daily lives and thinking about what incredible possibilities might lie ahead for, well, for all of us, for humanity's collective journey. So starting off, let's look at where we stand right now. Point A, as you said, the current landscape of capitalism. The material we looked at describes it as a kind of powerful societal script, or maybe a play, driven fundamentally by capital accumulation, private ownership, and pretty intense market competition. Now, it's definitely spurred incredible innovation, we can't deny that. But there's this central tension the sources highlight, this illusion of infinite growth on a finite planet. And this, they argue, leads to something they starkly call cosmic corruption.
Exactly. And this concept of material frequencies is key to understanding point A. It describes an economic system that's almost entirely tuned, you could say, to just one channel. Endless growth and efficiency specifically for profit. This creates a relentless cycle where, getting more stuff, material acquisition becomes the main way we measure success.
Yeah.
Or happiness, even personal worth. It's a fundamental misalignment not just with our planet's limits, but maybe with deeper universal principles.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, I thought. The sources point to social media platforms as a potent microcosm, like a perfect small-scale example of these dominant capitalist frequencies in action.
They absolutely do. Social media's business model is almost entirely built on what some call surveillance capitalism. You, the user, you're not really the customer, you're the product being sold.
Right.
Access might seem free, but the real cost, as our sources lay out, is the continuous extraction and monetization of user attention and personal data.
Wow. So every single interaction.
Every click, like, share, even how long you pause scrolling on something, it's all meticulously tracked and used to build these incredibly detailed psychological profiles, all for targeted advertising, of course.
So the algorithms take this data, and essentially they control what we see. How does that dynamic, according to the sources, fuel things like echo chambers or misinformation?
That's a crucial point, because these algorithms are designed to maximize engagement above all else. They end up pushing content that's often sensational, emotionally charged, polarizing, or even misleading, just because it gets clicks and shares.
Right, because that keeps you hooked.
Exactly. And the outcome is precisely what you mentioned. Echo chambers, filter bubbles. We only see things that confirm what we already believe, and it allows misinformation to spread incredibly fast, which, demonstrably contributes to societal polarization and this erosion of trust we're seeing.
And it seems like this system goes even deeper than just influencing what we see online, doesn't it? Our sources argue it actually reshapes how we perceive things, even leads to the commodification of human experience itself.
That's right. It really does. You see it when relationships get sort of reduced to metrics of followers and likes. It fosters this culture where external validation becomes, paramount. And individuals, in turn, engage in what the sources call significant emotional labor just to curate these idealized online personas. We essentially become like brands for consumption.
Brands.
And the rise of influencer culture is just a very direct, very visible example of this commercial leveraging of identity.
And the tolls, the human costs of this system, they seem quite significant. We're talking addictive design leading to anxiety, depression, FOMO, the fear of missing out, constantly being exposed to these curated, often unrealistic lives. It just fuels comparison and dissatisfaction. Plus, undermining democratic processes through unchecked disinformation. And this relentless appetite for data leads to a continuous erosion of personal privacy.
Right. And perhaps most importantly, as the sources suggest, our collective attention gets diverted. Diverted away from potentially deeper spiritual inquiry, meaningful real-world engagement, and the cultivation of genuine relationships.
Hmm.
And this connects powerfully back to what the sources call the inner spiritual compass, this still small voice, that intuitive pull towards truth, beauty, goodness. It can be easily drowned out by the pervasive noise and the insistent demands of these material frequencies.
Okay.
The consequence, as the material suggests, is that our full potential for conscious spiritual alignment often remains, dormant or underdeveloped during our lives. And that's framed as a direct result of humanity's collective free will choices.
Right. So, okay, that's a pretty stark picture of point A. After
Yeah.
grappling with that, what does a truly aligned economy actually look like? Let's talk about point B. Our sources paint this compelling picture of what capitalism could be. When it's viewed through the lens of universal principles, when it transcends its current materialist limits.
Precisely. Point B is about optimal efficiency, understood as a complete reorientation, where economic systems genuinely aim to maximize human flourishing, foster spiritual growth, and absolutely ensure planetary sustainability. And this transformed system would be intuitively guided by what they call an awakened collective consciousness.
Okay, and at its core, the sources mention a purpose-first principle. What does that mean exactly?
It means the main objective shifts away from just profit. It becomes about consciously manifesting universal values, truth, beauty, goodness, through economic activity.
So profit isn't gone, but
Exactly. Profit becomes a natural outcome, a consequence, and maybe even a reliable metric of efficient value creation, but it's not the sole driver anymore. They call this vision a living economy.
a living economy, I like that. So what are the key pillars supporting this ideal system?
Well, the first one discussed is ethical stewardship of resources. The understanding here is that all resources, natural, intellectual, human, are seen as a kind of sacred trust.
A sacred trust.
Yes, leading to a profound sense of responsibility and reverence for the planet. This naturally means prioritizing sustainable, regenerative, and environmentally conscious practices, and focusing on long-term planetary health over short-term gains. It embodies what they call an eternal now.
Eternal now, meaning like our actions today have timeless consequences.
Exactly. Acting with that deep awareness that choices ripple outwards, fostering a sense of timeless responsibility.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about the kind of value being created in this living economy?
That brings us to the second pillar, service-oriented value creation. Here, businesses genuinely exist to serve human needs and uplift society, not to create artificial demands or profit through exploitation. Innovation gets channeled towards solving real, pressing global challenges, and economic transactions are based on mutual benefit and fairness. It replaces mere value extraction with value co-creation.
And co-creation, so everyone involved benefits.
That's the idea, yes, creating value together.
Got it. And the third pillar must be about how that value is shared then.
Exactly. It's equitable distribution, a universal opportunity. Rewards are proportionate and fair, actively working to prevent extreme wealth concentration. Merit isn't just about profit, it's defined by positive contribution to the common good.
Right.
And barriers to essentials like quality education, comprehensive healthcare, and dignified housing are systematically dismantled. Accumulated wealth, in this vision, becomes more like a societal trust for reinvestment in public goods and philanthropy, not just, personal empire building.
What's really fascinating here, I think, is how this vision goes way beyond just economics.
Yeah.
It extends right into our personal growth and ethical conduct. It's not just about policy, it's inner transformation, too.
That's a crucial observation, absolutely. Business dealings in this ideal would be founded on absolute integrity, honesty, and transparency. Deception and greed are seen as completely antithetical to this system. They just don't fit. The dignity of all kinds of labor is universally recognized, and individuals are guided by inner principles like self-control and moderation. True success gets redefined, measured by inner peace, purposeful living, and a positive impact on the world, not just by how much stuff you have.
And it sounds like this ideal system isn't static either. It's designed for continuous improvement, with what the sources call conscious evolution and adaptive governance.
Yes, that's critical. Economic structures would be designed for constant evaluation and self-correction, built on transparency and accountability. And importantly, the metrics we use to measure progress have to fundamentally change.
Right, not just GDP.
Exactly. Progress goes beyond financial indicators like GDP to include comprehensive measures of societal well-being, environmental health, spiritual vitality, and human flourishing. When they talk about integrating material, intellectual, social, and spiritual capital, think of it as a holistic view of wealth. Not just money, but the richness of ideas, community, strength, inner life, all of it. This perfected capitalism, they suggest, would finally function in harmony with universal law.
Okay, wow. So this vision, point B, it sounds incredible, truly transformative, but it also sounds like a absolutely monumental undertaking, which brings us to the big question. What does this all mean for how long it would actually take to get there?
Yeah, that is the challenging question, isn't it? And the material we reviewed gives a pretty sobering perspective. It explains that human evolution and societal evolution along with it is inherently gradual. It happens through slow, cumulative choices, lessons learned, and character forged over vast stretches of time.
Millennia, maybe.
Potentially, yes. And it really emphasizes the inviolability of free will, meaning profound societal transformation like this depends entirely on the combined free will decisions of billions of individuals. You can't force it. Plus, our specific world has what are described as historical deviations, unique challenges or setbacks in our past which act as handicaps. They make progress inherently slower and more arduous for us compared to maybe some theoretical ideal.
So bottom line.
The bottom line is that a fundamental shift of this magnitude would realistically take centuries, millennia, or even longer. It's a long game.
Okay, so now let's consider that provocative thought experiment from the sources. Accelerating this whole transformation to the absolute least conceivable time frame, maybe even something as short as 24 hours. Is that even remotely possible?
The sources are very clear on this. A 24-hour shift is deemed virtually impossible, and they lay out several pretty insurmountable barriers. First, as we just touched on, the primacy of free will. A 24-hour change would require a complete override of billions of individual free wills, which is fundamentally contrary to how higher universal principles seem to operate. It just wouldn't happen that way.
It violates the whole system.
Exactly. Second, you have deep-seated habits and inertia. Individual minds are conditioned by, lifetimes of materialistic programming. You can't just flip a switch and instantly rewire that.
Yeah.
And our societal structures, like global financial systems, have immense inertia. Trying to instantly re-engineer them would just lead to catastrophic chaos and collapse, not optimal efficiency.
Right. Total breakdown.
Total breakdown. Third, just the sheer complexity of global systems, supply chains, energy grids, food distribution. An instantaneous radical change would inevitably result in widespread disorganization, famine, conflict, and societal breakdown. And finally, honestly, humanity currently lacks the unified vision and collective will needed for such a rapid shift. We just don't have the shared understanding or the collective desire, or frankly, the willingness to make the profound personal and societal sacrifices an overnight change would absolutely demand.
Okay, so 24 hours is completely off the table. Understood. But what would it take then for the least amount of time possible, even if that still means generations, not hours? What are those extraordinary conditions that could potentially accelerate things?
It would require, according to the sources, an unprecedented convergence of factors, primarily rooted in a profound and widespread shift in human consciousness. The first necessary factor would be widespread individual awakening. Picture a simultaneous global mass realization of the illusory nature of purely material pursuits. And alongside that, a conscious, deeply felt prioritization of truth, beauty, and goodness. This couldn't be forced. It would have to be a truly voluntary mass enlightenment.
Wow. Voluntary mass enlightenment. That's a powerful phrase. It sounds like a global moment of collective clarity. And what kind of leadership would have to emerge for something like that?
That brings us right to the second factor. Unprecedented moral and spiritual leadership. We'd need to see the emergence of countless leaders across all sectors, business, politics, community, who genuinely embody these higher values and who champion them with integrity, wisdom, and truly selfless service, inspiring people, not coercing them.
Okay.
This, in turn, would hopefully lead to the third factor, a collective will to prioritize spiritual over material. a conscious societal decision to fundamentally reorient our collective values, actively dismantling the systems that contradict these values, even if it involves significant short-term material discomfort.
A willingness to face that discomfort, that's key. And what about our individual connection, our inner guidance?
That's the fourth crucial element, direct conscious cooperation with inner guidance. A widespread conscious effort by individuals everywhere to actually listen and attune to that divine presence within, shifting it from being a kind of superconscious, maybe unnoticed influence, to an active conscious partnership in our daily choices.
Right, bringing it into the everyday.
Exactly. And finally, the sources suggest it might require a global experiential revelation of purpose. Something like a universally recognized, undeniable, and deeply felt experiential understanding of humanity's cosmic purpose and interconnectedness. Something so compelling, so real, that it just naturally reorients values for almost everyone.
A shared aha moment for the planet.
Something like that, yes. But even with all these extraordinary, almost miraculous conditions converging, our sources still emphasize the transformation would be an evolutionary process, likely still spanning generations, not years or decades.
Okay, so quite the journey we've mapped out. We've explored these pervasive material frequencies of current capitalism, really amplified by things like social media, and how they challenge humanity's, higher spiritual aspirations.
And yet we're reminded that the inner spiritual guide, that spark of divinity within each of us, patiently keeps working, always trying to illuminate the path toward truth, beauty, and goodness, even when there's so much clamor from material pursuits.
Yeah, and this deep dive showed us a possible trajectory, point B, towards a system where material organization actually serves as a vehicle for spiritual actualization, where profit becomes secondary to purpose, and where planetary and human well-being are truly paramount.
Exactly. And while that instantaneous 24-hour shift is impossible, the journey can potentially be accelerated. Through widespread, voluntary, and conscious awakening, it really comes down to choice, doesn't it? Collectively and individually.
So our sources suggest that this current script of time-bound materialism with its limiting frequencies, it will eventually give way to a higher, more harmonious expression of human potential. So maybe the question for you listening is, what small conscious choice might you make today? A choice to begin aligning with that higher frequency, even just a little bit in your own life, moving us all perhaps just one step closer to that cosmic harmony.